Hey y'all. Hey, my name is Lena Marie and I'm the creative director and the owner of Phoenix Sunshine, and today is Sunday. Alright, so Sundays and Wednesdays are my new days when I'm going to actually come on here, get in front of the camera, and discuss different things that are associated with Phoenix Sunshine. In case you're wondering, I have spent probably like the last 3 weeks working on new content, trying to wrap my whole brain around my business being launched, which is now up and running. And yeah, I just had to take a break for a minute and regroup and figure out a few things, but I'm back. And today's video has been a long time coming. It's probably one of my favorite topics, which is music. Now, as you all know, Phoenix Sunshine is an apparel brand that celebrates three components, which is spirituality, Black history, and hip hop. And on this Sunday, I'm actually talking about different albums that impacted my life. And a lot of them were hip hop. Now, I initially started off making a list of 5, but kind of did a snowball effect, so it's about 8 now. And so I figured since I didn't want to make this video too long, I'm going to do 4 in this one and 4 in the next one. Just to give a little bit of a backstory on my special relationship with music, I actually felt that I've been intuitively connected to a higher power since I would say about 3 or 4 years old. I remember being about 3 or 4 years old. I was at daycare and I was spinning around in circles, and then I stopped, and then I had this thought like, what's the human purpose? But at that young of an age, that's about as far as it went. Now, as I got older, I started to realize that I had a clairvoyant ability as well. For some reason, with my clairvoyant ability, it seemed to be really connected to music, and it's always been connected to music. Like, prime example, I remember being in the car with my mom one time, and the radio was off, and I started singing Get Down Tonight by Casey and the band, and the Sunshine Band. And I was singing the chorus out loud, and she turned on the radio and she's going through the different stations, and right at that moment, that same part that I was just singing came through the radio. So what happened to me basically is that I would hear a song in my head and I would either sing it out loud, and then, or sometimes I won't, but then I'll hear somebody singing it, or it'll pop up on the radio, or it'll be on somebody's phone, or something like that would always typically happen to me when it came to whenever some type of song popped into my head on its own. And sometimes when I'm listening to music, I will feel these little ticklish sensations in my brain. And for a simple Google search, coming to find out that's a dopamine release. And basically, it's a part of your brain that controls pleasure. I say all of that to pretty much say that I have a really intense and loving relationship with music. I mean, it has the power to bring you out of a funk. It has the power to elevate your mood, and it just always has a special place in my heart. All right, so basically, we're gonna get to this countdown. Now, I say countdown because it's just in my head, but there's no real order for these albums. They all are one of my favorite albums, so I'm gonna just get to it. The first album that I'm gonna talk about is one of my absolute favorites. It was my favorite from the first listen, and that would be To Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar. Alright, so this album came out in March of 2015, and it couldn't have came out at a more perfect time. I was newly single, and it came at a time when I was trying to find myself and, just figure out what it is that makes Lena all over again. Listening to this album actually lit a fire within me, and it really was the starting point of my spiritual journey taking off. This album really made me fall in love with it just from the sense of familiarity to it, and I felt that way because it had a clear influence of funk music, jazz music, and I love his storytelling lyricism that he had. I grew up listening to a lot of different artists. I listened to Donna Summer, Miles Davis, Frankie Beverly, and Maze. Just a lot of different musical influences that I heard within this album. The lyricism and the instrumentals that the album provided, it just gave me a sense of being home whenever I listened to it. The album made me feel free when I heard the the saxophone in the very beginning from Wesley Snipes' Theory, and at the very end, the piano, Tomorrow Man. Now, throughout this entire album, he's really peeling back on a lot of different layers and at the same time dropping gems, but he's really peeling back a lot of layers into his psyche, and he does that with a lot of vivid imagery and a lot of vivid lyricism. He tackles a lot of different subjects that only can come about after you reach a certain level of inner reflection. I mean, you can clearly tell that Kendrick Lamar is on a whole new, different trajectory, not only in his career, but also in his spiritual alignment. In my opinion, this is the one album that I can listen to from beginning to end, and it has no skips to me. But a few of my favorites, one of them would have to be I, because it's about self-love, and it's just this declaration of telling the world that I love myself regardless how the rest of the world sees me. Another one of my favorite songs on the album is How Much a Dollar Costs. Now, in this particular song, Kendrick is having a conversation with a homeless man, and they're going back and forth over $1. Now, Kendrick is telling him, no, I'm not going to give you $1 because I know what you're going to use it for. You're going to use it either for drugs or alcohol. And the homeless man is going back and telling him, saying, no, I'm not going to use it for any addiction. I don't have an addiction anymore. I just need to have $1 from you. But in the end, he basically tells him, no, I'm not going to give you this $1. And so the homeless man goes ahead and tells him, you know what, you just denied Christ. And so with you denying Christ, you lost your spot in heaven. I remembered watching an interview that Kendrick did with Rob Markman. And in that interview, How Much a Dollar Costs came up in the conversation. And so Kendrick's inspiration behind this song was a conversation that he had with a homeless man. And after he gave the homeless man $1, he said, God bless you. And Kendrick got the sense of that, okay, that was a test. And another one of my absolute favorites would have to be These Walls. Just wanna close our eyes and sway with you, with you, with you. These walls baking more than a minute. These walls are vulnerable. Explanation, interior pink, color coordinated. I interrogated every nook and cranny. I mean, it's still amazing before they couldn't stand me. These walls wanna cry tears. These walls happy when I'm here. These walls never hold up. Every time I come around to them, let's go crush. If these walls are talk. Honestly, if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't really know exactly what this song is talking about, but it's one of my favorites. I mean, I love the instrumental. I love the funk element to it. I love his flow. Like, it's just a bop, honestly. Another one of my favorites will have to be All Right. Now, All Right is pretty much a testament. It's another declaration of saying, you know, hey, we're going to be all right. In the midst of police brutality, racism, the bullshit that we got to deal with by simply walking down the street and being black, we going to be all right. And I loved it. Now, if I really wanted to, I could sit here and tell you all about the different songs and why they all are my favorites, because they all kind of are. But, I mean, that's a whole nother video for a whole nother day. I'm pretty much going to wrap it up here because I'll be here all day talking about this damn album. So, basically, this album is one of my favorites because he is very insightful without sounding too preachy. And this album marks the very beginning stages of my spiritual alignment, and I couldn't be more grateful for this particular album. All right, now the next album on my list would have to be 2014 Forest Hills Drive by J. Cole. All right, now this album came out in December of 2014, and to me, in my opinion, this album cemented J. Cole's legacy in hip-hop culture. Now, granted, Born Center was the spark of the conversation of J. Cole being a legend, but really with Forest Hills Drive, it really showed how ingrained he is in the hip-hop community. But like I said, that's just my own humble opinion. You ain't gotta agree with it. That's just what I said, so. Now, this album actually came out when I was working at Walmart. Now, if anybody knows working in Walmart, you go in there and deal with a lot of entitled folk up in there now. Trust me, if you know, you know. But when I used to listen to this album for an 8-hour shift, it made me feel more prepared to go ahead and deal with that. And when I would listen to it, I would be taken to a whole different place. And I would remember saying underneath my breath different lyrics just to keep me motivated and keep me going until my clock out time. Even when I left work, I would listen to this album because it gave me a sense of decompressing from the workday that I had ahead of me. And so it just made me feel like I had a sort of a shower for my brain listening to this album. And when I had this album in my car, I never actually listened to nothing else. I never taken it out, switched to CD. I never really listened to the radio. It was just this album playing in my car all the time. He tackles a lot of things in this album. He talks about his experiences during the adolescence years. He talks about the unfairness of white artists getting accolades over black artists. And he also talks about how history repeats itself, especially in the music industry. I mean, by now in this day and age, it's a well-known fact that the media loves black culture and everything within it, from the features, the mannerisms, the language, the fashion behind it, and in this case, music. They love black culture. They don't want the originator's face to be on the trends that are, you know, taking over the market. They rather have imitators come behind it. And it's really for marketing reasons and for financial gain. In Fire Squad, he says all of this. He basically calls out Macklemore, Justin Timberlake, and Eminem, but essentially doing the same thing that Elvis done to rock and roll. Please do not get confused by what I'm saying. I am saying that Eminem is a highly influential hip-hop artist, and he is beloved by the hip-hop community, and he's welcomed in open arms. And same thing with Justin Timberlake. I mean, we love Justin. I mean, he had me in the living room singing Bye 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 to NSYNC when I was a little kid. I mean, come on now. He's a part of my childhood. But we cannot deny the fact that both of those artists have been heavily influenced by black culture, and they deeply benefit from it because they have been able to reach a wider audience because they are white. Another one of my favorites in this album is '03 Adolescence. Now, in that particular song, he's basically using a girl as a metaphor for the hip-hop industry. In this song, he's contemplating on selling drugs because he wants to, you know, be fly. He wants to have that image that he sees in his head that is accepted by the hip-hop industry. That he has to conform into this image in order to be successful and to be accepted. So he goes to his friend and he tells him, like, you know, yeah, put me on. He like, yo, you know how stupid you sound right now? Just laughed when he seen I was sure 17 years breathing his demeanor said more. He told me, nigga, you know how you sound right now? If my mans, I would think that you a clown right now. Listen, you everything I want to be. That's why I fuss with you. So how you looking up to me when I look up to you? You about to go get a degree. I'm going to be stuck with two choices. Either graduate to wait or sell the number two. So his friend is basically, you know, checking him like, yo, you got a bright future ahead of you. Why would you want to throw that away? Like, I'm doing this because I have to. You got better choices than I do. I mean, I got 4 brothers with 1 mother that don't love us. And, you know, so why would you want to do some shit like this? I ain't got no choice. It's the only reason why I'm doing it. So when Cole hears his friend's perspective, he goes to think about it. He's like, you know what? I really wasn't raised off of survival. I was raised off of love, compassion, a mom that gave a fuck about me. And he really decides to stay on the path of the trajectory of him going off to college. And everybody knows that Cole is a college-educated man. I love this album for a lot of different reasons. I mean, he is tackling a lot of different serious topics like losing one's virginity. He talks about how history repeats itself. And he also talks about dismantling this whole idea that it can only be one head honcho in the hip-hop community. There is a humorous flair to this album, and it's riddled throughout the entirety of it. Like, prime example, on No Role Models, he does a little snippet where Georgia was just fucking up the quote that says, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. He completely batters it. I know it was funny because my mom even thought it was funny. Like I said, I did not switch out this album. I let it play in my car all the time. And when my mom heard that part, she was like, okay, now that's funny. Another part in that particular song was when he pretends to be Richie in Harlem Lights when he called up his wife and said, hey, yeah, I'm never coming home anymore, and hangs up. And that album took me to a lot of different directions. It pulled me in a lot of different directions. I mean, it's one of J. Cole's best albums, in my opinion. You know, another song that is one of my absolute favorites will have to be Love Yours. And in Love Yours, he's basically reiterating this idea that you do not have to have the latest fashion, the latest car, the baddest bitch in order to appreciate your life. I mean, if you keep trying to find your happiness on external circumstances, then you'll never be happy. It'll never fulfill you, and you'll just keep chasing after that particular song. It just really gave an honest look in what it takes to really be grateful for your current circumstances. I mean, you can always grow, you can always evolve, but you do have to sit back and take in your life and appreciate your current blessings before you can get new blessings. For the preparation of this video, I had to listen to this album in its entirety, and it brought up a lot of old different memories. It brought up the memory of working at Hellmark. It brought up the memories of my old car, and it definitely brought up the memory of me driving around and envisioning everything that I heard. You know, I remember listening to this album, and I do remember putting a lot of movie scenes in my head from the lyrics that I was hearing, and I will always be grateful for that, because when listening to this album, it made me feel like, okay, it's quite possible to go after what you love. And you know what? I actually changed my mind in the midst of making this video, because I realized I talk a hell of a lot. So instead of doing 4 in this video, I'm gonna just leave y'all with 2. So before ending this video, I just wanted to remind you all to please like, subscribe, comment, interact with me. It really helps with the algorithm. And yeah, I mean, you're here already. Obviously you like the content, so just go ahead and watch it. Come on. Help a girl out. Okay, so with that being said, I wanted to leave you all with our tagline, which is, it is beautiful to rise from the ashes and still shine. Peace.